Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of the Roundabout Way of Fate. This will be Part 9, Chapter 7, entitled The Todorokis. Izuku finally finishes reading the anatomy book 2 months later. When he announces his triumph, Kachan gives him a mildly impressed look, and Inko cooks him katsudan for dinner. All Might sends him a carefully crafted thumbs-up emoji. He texts Recovery Girl too, and her response goes along the lines of, "Good job, now read it again." It makes him grimace, but the healer surprises him by dropping by his house during that weekend to give him a gift. It's a bunch of DVDs of this old show called House M.D. Recovery Girl gives them to him in hopes of making the learning process more interesting. It was made way back before quirks appeared, so it'll be a good introduction into traditional quirkless medical practices, many of which are still used today. Izuku questions the fact that it's a drama show, and she says that despite how exaggerated everything is, the episodes are based on real medical issues. She really seems adamant that he watched the show, so he just shrugs and accepts the DVDs without complaint. Later that night, he drags Kachan to his couch and forces the blonde to watch with him. 2 days later, they're on Season 3. "God, I hate this fucking show," Kachan growls as he stares at the screen with rapt attention. He's too captivated to even care that Izuku's feet are resting on top of his legs. "I like Cameron," Izuku chirps, snuggling into a pillow. "She's so cute and friendly, like a rabbit." Kachan snorts. "Figures you would like her. She's way too soft to be a doctor, if you ask me." He leans back and glares at the TV, waving his hand vaguely. "But I don't get why women like this House guy. He's such a jackass. Why do people hang out with him?" "I don't know. Probably the same reason I hang out with you." "Oi!" Kachan throws a pillow at his face. July 3rd. A message from Toshinori. 4:00 p.m. "Guess what, young Midoriya?" "What?" "Since we met, my time in my muscle form has increased by 40 minutes. "Woohoo!" "Yes, woohoo! And I have gained 20 pounds. "Woohoo again! You've been eating well, then." "Yes, although I wish Recovery Girl wasn't so bossy about what I ate. Apparently eating fatty American foods isn't considered a healthy way to gain weight." "Well, even if you are malnourished, gaining weight too quickly will probably give you indigestion at the very least. And probably some metabolism problems, too. And issues with your blood sugar." "See, now you sound like Recovery Girl." "I will take that as a compliment." "So no ice cream?" "No." Toshinori sent a sad emoji. "What if I told you I haven't been able to eat ice cream in the past 5 years?" "I would believe you, but still no. Why don't you make a list of all the stuff you really want to eat, and then you have that to look forward to?" "Sounds like that would just make me want to eat that stuff right now." No, it'll be motivational, 'cause you'll see that list and think, wow, I want to eat that food. Better keep eating whatever Recovery Girl is making me eat so I can get to the good stuff sooner." Fine. But can I say that nutrition shakes are disgusting?" "Your complaint is noted. If you hate them so much, then why don't you try another flavor?" "There's more than one flavor." "Yeah, I hear the chocolate-flavored ones are really good." "There's chocolate-flavored nutrition shakes. What the hell has Chio been making me drink then? Hold on, I need to make a call." "All Might?" "All Might. I would actually like to have a mentor when I go to UA, you know. R.I.P. Recovery Girl." "I have successfully negotiated for strawberry cream-flavored shakes." July 20th. Message from Midoriya to Recovery Girl. "What kind of ending was that?" "I'm assuming you finished House." "I am conflicted." "I thought it was solid, but it's also been a few years since I've seen the show. More importantly, what did you learn?" "There are so many more things that can go wrong with the human body than I had initially thought." "Huh, and that didn't even cover injuries." "I asked Kachan what he learned, and he said, no one can fire you for being an asshole if you're the best at your job. I am mildly concerned." "Yes, but don't worry. Unfortunately, most doctors and healers are not like House." "Unfortunately?" "The whole ruggedly handsome look isn't as popular in the medical community as I would like it to be." My roommates and I watched House when we were in med school, and we got all these high expectations for the male doctors we would be working with in the future. But alas, no. I have not met a doctor like House. I am still a single woman, after all. I can feel your judgment through the screen, boy. I didn't say anything. Ruggedly handsome? Go read your book. By the time winter comes around, Izuku's anatomy book is filled with a cacophony of highlights and brightly colored sticky notes. Recovery Girl gave him permission to write on the pages, and he finds it a lot easier to memorize things when he has visual cues like colors to help him remember. He's nearly done with his 4th round of reading the book, which is more than Recovery Girl asked, but he wants to be extra prepared. There hasn't been much time for anything but studying during the winter break. They're studying for school, for Recovery Girl, and for the UA entrance exam in February. To make matters worse, All Might tells Izuku that the recommendation exam occurs a week earlier than the general exam. It's to give the judges time to evaluate the scores, the number 1 hero says over the phone. Rather than doing it after the general exam, when they'll also be busy evaluating a larger number of students, it gives those who fail the recommendation exam the chance to take the general one. It makes sense, of course, but damn if it doesn't rile up Izuku's already shot nerves. The boy is a mess of anxiety during the entire month of January, despite constant reassurances from Inko, Haru, and all the Bakugos. He pours himself into his studies and repeats information like a mantra in his head during class until the day finally comes. I don't like that you're going to be going by yourself, Kachan growls as Izuku struggles to pick what to wear. It's still early in the morning, but the blonde had come over anyway, knowing that his friend would no doubt be working himself into a worried fit. He's right, to some degree. Izuku was too nervous to eat much for breakfast, so instead he's focusing on making himself presentable. I'm not going to be alone, Kachan, Izuku says as he pulls out his tank top, frowning in consideration. It's still pretty cold outside, but he knows there'll be a physical portion, and he doesn't want to risk getting too hot. But then again, his main focus is on the written exam. Recovery Girl's colleague is going to meet me at the train station, remember? Kachan grumbles unintelligibly. What do you think I should wear? Izuku asks, giving up and putting the tank top back. I want to be practical, but I also want to look nice. Kachan huffs before getting up and not so gently nudging him aside with his shoulder. Izuku goes to sit on the bed and waits, while Kachan rummages through his closet, eventually pulling out a pair of black leggings that he usually wears to spar or run, as well as a white long-sleeve shirt and a black track jacket. He throws the clothes at Izuku with more force than necessary, and snaps at him to get changed already. He ends up walking Izuku to the train station to meet All Might, who is waiting for them in his non-muscled form. Izuku smiles when he sees him. He hasn't seen the number 1 hero in person since April, so he hasn't been able to see his physical progress since then. All Might is definitely back to a healthy weight now, and his health shows in every aspect of his body, from his shiny hair to his straightened posture. His eyes and cheeks are no longer sunken and gaunt, and when he smiles at them, it's a lot brighter. He looks happy. Izuku can hardly recognize the one skeletal man he met in the alley. Young Midoriya, it's good to see you again, All Might greets, waving them over. His eyes land on Kachan, but his smile doesn't fade. And you must be young Bakugo. Kachan eyes All Might skeptically as he nods. Yeah. Izuku hasn't really talked much about All Might, or rather Toshinori, with Kachan, so he knows the other boy is a bit wary around him. But even without being in his muscled form, All Might is still a very tall and lean man, so eventually Kachan mentally deems him worthy enough to leave Izuku in his care. Text me when you get there, nerd, he says, turning away. And good luck. With that said, he bumps his shoulder and leaves. Izuku and All Might turn to each other and both simply grin for a few moments. You look good, Izuku says, proud when his voice doesn't squeak. Even though he's technically been talking to All Might for months, there's a big difference between texting and meeting up personally. The boy is hit with yet another reminder that he is totally not over his hero worship. Thank you, All Might says, puffing up his chest proudly. Then his grin softens and he asks, How are you feeling? Like I'm about to die, Izuku answers truthfully, and All Might laughs. Nonsense. He clasps the boy's shoulder, leading him to their platform. "You've already won the favor of Principal Nezu and Recover Girl. All there's left to do is pass the written portion and do as well as you can during the physical demonstration. You'll be fine. I know how hard you've been studying." I know, it's just... Izuku scrunches up his shoulders and looks at the ground. What if I don't get in? I mean, what'll I even do then? What if all this was for nothing? How will I ever become a healer if I can't train with Recovery Girl at UA? Bold of you to assume that Shio-san wouldn't train you even if you didn't get into UA. All Might chuckles as they step onto the train. I don't think you understand how excited she is to have an apprentice. Besides, you know that if you don't pass the recommendation test, then you can always try for the general exam next week. Sure, you wouldn't get into the hero course, but Shio-san would be able to still train you if you were in general studies. Izuku takes a deep breath and sits down, All Might taking the seat next to him. You're right, he sighs. I just worry, you know. Yeah, no kidding. All Might lets out a huff of laughter, and Izuku puffs out his cheeks in mock offense. Thankfully, the train ride to UA isn't very long, and All Might talks for most of the time, clearly trying to distract the greenette as he anxiously tugs at his curls. At one point, the number one hero pauses and coughs a little, immediately taking out a handkerchief to quickly wipe his mouth, but Izuku doesn't miss the splash of red on the cloth before it is pulled away. You're still coughing up blood? He asks softly. All Might clears his throat. Yeah, I think it has more to do with my lung than my stomach. Izuku frowns, feeling a pang of guilt. Even if it would be detrimental to him, he technically does have the ability to heal the hero, and yet here he is, making him wait. All Might must read Izuku's face because he smiles reassuringly and says, Don't worry about it. I told you, I can wait. Besides, I already feel loads better thanks to you. Trust me, this is nothing. Izuku blushes lightly at the praise and looks down at his lap, smiling. He eventually stops fussing with his hair and pulls it up into a ponytail before they arrive at their stop. It'll be better to have it out of the way during the written and physical exams. The train station is only a short walk away from campus, and soon Izuku is gawking in awe as UA looms over him. All Might laughs at his reaction and puts a hand on his back to lead him inside. It's more amazing than he could ever have imagined, and it's so big, part of him wonders if it's because they have to accommodate students with mutant or gigantification-type quirks. As they walk past the gates, All Might inflates into his muscled form. I don't think that anyone but Principal Nezu and Chiyo-san know that I am the one that is sponsoring you, he says. So I apologize if there is a bit of a fuss. That's all right. Do you think we're early? Izuku asks, glancing around for other recommendation students. All Might looks at his phone. Not really. I'm sure others will be arriving shortly, although I will admit I'm a bit out of my depth here. He scratches the back of his head. To keep things fair, Nezu-san only told me what the other sponsors were told. All I know is that we're going to meet in Gym Beta. He nods at a smaller building to the left of the main building, and they start walking towards it. After that, I assume that you'll be directed to wherever your test will be taken. Okay, Izuku says as they approach the teacher center. How many recommendation students will there be? Are there a specific amount of spots to be filled, or do they just accept as many as they want? All Might shakes his head and shrugs cluelessly. I really don't know, young Midoriya. This is new for me, too. Right, sorry. He apologizes. They're at the door now, but they both stop in front of it. All Might turns to him, and after a moment of gazing, lifts his hand as if to ruffle his hair comfortingly. He then seems to reconsider it, since he'd ruin Izuku's ponytail, so instead he just gives him a thumbs up, before pushing the door open. The first thing Izuku notices is that the flame hero Endeavor is standing at the end of the hallway with another boy. The second thing he notices is that as soon as Endeavor glances over his shoulder, he immediately starts glaring heatedly at All Might. Izuku is not unaware of the apparent despise Endeavor holds for the number one hero. It's fairly common knowledge that he's always been jealous of the latter's status. In fact, the only one who doesn't seem to notice his hatred for All Might is All Might himself. which is evident in how the hero perks up at the sight of Endeavor and waves. "Yo, Endeavor!" All Might calls in his deep voice, wearing his signature grin as he approaches the other man. Izuku trails behind him nervously. "Long time no see." "All Might," Endeavor practically growls as he fully turns around. Izuku gulps. The flame hero is far more intimidating in real life than he is on TV. Izuku was interested in him for a little while before his healing quirk manifested, because he thought he might inherit his father's fire-breathing quirk. Even back then, Izuku couldn't find himself liking the hero very much, mostly because, despite his fire quirk, he just seems so cold, especially compared to someone like All Might. He's never been known for being particularly friendly, and Izuku can see that now more than ever. He makes sure to stand slightly behind All Might when he stops in front of Endeavor. "I haven't seen you since that talk we had with the press 10 years ago, huh?" All Might says, completely ignorant of the glare the other hero is sending him. If looks could kill, the #1 hero would be nothing but a pile of ashes by now. "What are you doing here, All Might?" Endeavor asks, and All Might visibly brightens. Before Izuku can react, the blonde has his hand on his back and is pushing him forward. "I'm here to sponsor this fine young man, Midoriya Izuku," All Might proudly announces. Izuku very nearly shrivels when Endeavor's glare turns to him. Heart racing in his chest, he can't help but shrink slightly when the flame hero narrows his eyes suspiciously. Izuku tries to hold his gaze but very quickly loses his nerve and drops his eyes, instead looking over to the boy standing next to him, who he assumes is his son, Todoroki Shoto. He's heard very little about him. Endeavor is especially tight-lipped when it comes to talking about his family. But it seems that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because Todoroki is glaring at him just like his father, albeit less heatedly. No, his eyes are cold, and his face is carefully devoid of emotion. But somehow Izuku still gets the feeling that he's being sized up. "You are sponsoring someone." Endeavor's voice is carrying a hint of something else now, something Izuku can't quite decipher. "Well, he must be a very special young man if he's able to catch your eye." Even though his words seem kind, he practically spits them out. All Might pats Izuku's shoulder and grins brilliantly. "Indeed," he proclaims, puffing up his chest with pride. "Young Midoriya here is one of the most powerful quirks I've ever seen." Izuku has never wished so badly for All Might to shut up before. He knows the older man means well, but dear God, how can he not see that he and Endeavor are on completely different pages? As soon as All Might says those words, Endeavor's flames seem to grow. His attention is fully on Izuku now, and the poor boy can virtually feel the intense heat radiating off of him. A quick glance tells him that Todoroki is still staring at him with cold eyes. Well, shit. What the hell is going on? "Is that so? High praise from the #1 hero," Endeavor growls, low like rolling thunder. "I look forward to seeing it." After a few more moments of glaring, he straightens up and gestures to his son. "My Shoto is taking the recommendation exam as well." He somehow makes the statement sound like a threat. "I believe this will be a fine opportunity for everyone to show their strength and skill." Then, much like how All Might did with him, Endeavor puts his hand on Todoroki's back and pushes him forward. So now Izuku is awkwardly standing in front of Todoroki, while the other boy continues to glare at him, icily. Crap, why is he so creepy? Izuku is used to the explosive rage that Kachan constantly displays, not this silent, cold intimidation. It's so terribly unnerving. He hopes he never has to use his quirk on him. No, what the hell is he thinking? Intimidating or not, Todoroki could be one of his future patients. He should make himself seem friendly and open. No doubt he'll have to form strong relationships with heroes in the future, so why not start with one of his potential classmates? Looking up at Todoroki, Izuku forces himself not to shrink under his gaze, and instead smiles. Unfortunately, Todoroki must interpret it the wrong way because his eyes narrow in response. "Certainly." Meanwhile, All Might is still talking to Endeavor. "I look forward to seeing young Shoto's power as well. You've always been so secretive about him, Endeavor." Endeavor huffs and opens his mouth to respond, but before he can, the door behind him opens and a head pops out. Izuku perks up, instantly recognizes her as the R-rated hero Midnight. "Oh, there you guys are," Midnight says. "Well, don't just stand out here. Come on inside. We're just waiting for a couple more people." Endeavor sends one last scathing look to All Might before brushing past her. Midnight hastily dodges, narrowly avoiding his flames. Todoroki follows his father silently. As soon as they're gone, Izuku feels as if a giant weight has been lifted off of his chest. Sighing wearily, he turns to All Might and asks, "Is he always that intense?" "Yep," All Might replies, popping the pea. "But he's a strong and well-respected hero, although I haven't had the chance to work with him many times." He sounds so genuinely disappointed that Izuku nearly snorts. How can someone so powerful and successful be so oblivious? All Might straightens up. "Having young Shoto as your ally will no doubt be beneficial." He says it so confidently that Izuku can't help but smile in response. Well, just because his first impression of Todoroki wasn't so good, that doesn't mean he should let it cloud his judgment of the other boy. All right, listeners, this concludes the first half to Chapter 7 of The Roundabout Way of Fate. The second half of this chapter will be up next, which will pick up with the continuation of the recommendation exam. I hope you all are still enjoying this fic. Drop those thoughts, reactions, comments below, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.